It is showtime. Maybe we. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ancient Wisdom and the Future Science of Sound with Neil Gaur, philosopher, historian, researcher, spoken word artist. Portaltoascension.org is his website. I'm Charissa Sims, live event host for Humanity Stream, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to make conscious living prevalent worldwide by 2040. And I'm coming to you live from Lafayette, Colorado. I also wanted to welcome those streaming live through the Humanities Team Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Stream Plus members that are here in the green room with us. Thanks for being members. I wanted to do a special shout out to the Sign Network with John and Summer Raymer at sign.network. We are grateful for your partnership. Because it is a live program, we will have time for comments and questions. So try to get your question in within the first 30 to 40 minutes of the program and post it in the chat, and you may get your question answered by Neil. So wherever you're watching, we are monitoring the chat, whether it's the viewing room or the YouTube channel or Facebook. Let me share a little bit more about Neil. He is the founder of Portal to Ascension, a conscious event production company created in 2008 that hosts a wide range of presenters on a variety of topics, such as the origins of humanity, the existence of ETs, life exposing hidden truths, and exploring the nature of reality. He travels the world facilitating gatherings that are intended to empower the individual to reclaim their sovereignty and awaken to their full potential. Neil hosts, creates, and facilitates about 70 conferences, workshops, and retreats a year. That's incredible. At this point, Portal to Ascension has worked with over 3,000 researchers, spiritualists, scientists, consciousness explorers, and more. Neil is a philosopher, historian, researcher, and spoken word artist. He presents his research on the ancient wisdom and the future of sound, vibration, and frequency, as well as in-depth explorations into ancient civilizations, archeological discoveries, space anomalies, shedding light on hidden esoteric wisdom, and exploring ways in which we can create unity and peace on earth. So happy to connect with you today, Neil.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much. Thank you, Carissa. It's good to be here with you too.
And where are you connecting from?
Right now, I'm in Colombia.
Oh, wonderful. And what brought you to Colombia?
Well, as you were sharing, since I do 70 events a year, I have about 10% of them are in person. Like I have one in England every year, one in California every year. The rest of them are online. So it gives me an opportunity to just work from wherever I'm at, And right now, I'm actually in the process of becoming fluent in Spanish. So I heard Colombia is the best place to learn Spanish. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Oh, amazing. I did that in Guatemala. It was a
Oh,
wonderful
nice.
place to
Mhm.
live with a family and learn
Oh,
Spanish.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you explain the ancient history of sound, including religions and origin stories?
Yep. So, when I started getting into consciousness, the first thing that I really found was sound healing. So, around 2001 is when I had my awakening, and it was really about looking for the root of all religion. That's how it all started for me. I was raised Hindu, and I didn't really believe in anything, even though I did all these Hindu practices. And I started seeing similarities between Christianity and Hinduism. I was told my whole life that these two religions were independently grew from it. They independently evolved. There was no connection because one's got multiple gods, one's got one god. But all of a sudden, I started seeing similarities in Yeshua's life with Krishna's life. So that started like the search. I was 18 years old, looking for the root of all religion. And as I was doing that and looking at the ancient text, I started finding all these discoveries on information on ancient quantum physics, acoustical quantum physics. Like, quantum physics nowadays, vibration, you can use technology to create that vibration. But in the ancient texts, it seemed like when they were talking about meditation, when they were talking about yoga, eating well, it was all really about how to shift your frequency. So I started wondering, is there some scientific truth to the fact that everything in these ancient texts allude to us being made of the sound of vibration? So as I went down this deep down rabbit hole, there was a good 6 to 8 years of like conspiracy theories to consciousness. Like if I ever create a book, it'll be called Conspiracies to Consciousness.
That's a great title.
All right. And then
I think people will love it.
that was pretty much it for me. And then I discovered sound healing Tibetan bowls, and I realized that we're made out of sound and vibration. Everything is frequency, and the frequency of everything around you affects your vibration. And because we've grown into a world where we do things so unintentionally and unconsciously, we now utilize and create vibration without the realization that it's actually affecting our consciousness. A great example would be EMF frequencies, cell phone frequencies, Wi-Fi signals, right? Those are all benefiting us, but because we are collectively, not everyone, but the institutions are unaware that those vibrations can affect us positively or negatively. They don't create harmonic frequencies. They're just trying to meet the bottom line of achieving a certain goal, right? So that's kind of the context and the history of why I got into it. And so when I started looking into these ancient civilizations, I did a whole deep dive on the origin stories of humanity. And I went through 300 different ancient texts and look at what they were speaking about, how they spoke about humanity existing, and every single one of them was talking about sound and vibration. And even the
Mm.
ones that didn't seem like they were talking about sound, if you dig deep enough, there actually were. And a good example would be, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, right? The most common one. Most people in Christianity or in the Abrahamic religions, when they're thinking about the Word, they're just thinking about God. They're not realizing that the Word is a representation of sound. And in that one, in John 1:1, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God." Okay.
Mm.
So this is very interesting because how can something be next to something, but also be that thing at the same time? So, and it also said the Word was there before God as well. So the sound existed before God. Many other ancient civilizations, like in North America, they speak about um, the sound creating the realms of the gods. So this started piquing my curiosity. Is God, or whatever God is, the original source, or did even the realms of gods and physical manifestations of higher dimensional beings come from a more ancient story, right? And after going through 300 origin stories, I realized that the Big Bang even was the number one origin story when it comes to science. A lot of
That's
people
what I
don't
was going to ask you about. I'm glad you brought that
a
up.
lot of people don't realize that the Big Bang story is quite literally talking about a sound, an explosion, what
Yeah.
happened after the vibration. So that's kind of what started everything for me. And the reason why I love speaking about ancient civilizations and sound is because I think every topic within consciousness has a sound and frequency element to it.
Mm. And so when you say you had an awakening, was that your realization between the connection of sound and us as humans and God?
So the awakening in 2001 was realizing that Krishna and Yeshua had almost the same exact resume. They were
Oh,
both they were both called the Savior. They both said, "I'm the way and the light." You know, they both had a carpenter father. They both were born to a virgin mother, right? And the list goes on and on. So,
interesting.
and since I was raised in England and I celebrated Christmas every year, and I knew a lot about Jesus, I watched a lot of Jesus movies and Moses movies as a kid. I started but I was told the whole time I was a kid that they're not got nothing in common with each other. I started thinking that is the Krishna story the original story? For example,
Oh,
Christ
because that came
came
first?
before, yeah.
Oh, it
So like
did. Okay,
yeah, the Christ
interesting.
story, like Christ, right? Christ and Christ and
Oh,
Krishna.
yeah.
That's not a coincidence. It's
Hmm.
the same root word. And it comes from Christos, which is another person in Greece who has the exact same story as Jesus. And Pythagoras, also has, if you do a whole comparison of Yeshua and Pythagoras' life, it almost seems like they took Pythagoras' life and overlaid it into Jesus's life. So I started seeing all those connections, and then I was like, okay, if the Yeshua story is based on an older story, how far back does this story go? And that's what started it for me. I started looking as far back as I could go to see what the origin of all religion is.
I see. I see. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And we'd love to hear from our audience. So if anyone has any questions, just type it in the chat wherever you're watching this. And maybe you've answered this already. What is the primordial sound that is found in creation stories?
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about the primordial sound, the actual sound, in my opinion, it's Om. Om is the primordial.
Okay. Mhm.
Because in the Sanskrit text, it talks about that in the beginning was also vibration and frequency, some sort of word, some sort of frequency, and that frequency expanded to become all of physical reality. And in the Sanskrit text, it says the sound is Om. So the
Okay.
primordial sound is from what everything came from, almost like a sound that existed before physical matter. And
Mm,
what I feel is like something that I've come to realize even more lately is, a lot of people talk about God being light, right? And if you
mhm,
look at if you just go and just like now you can use ChatGPT, just go ahead and get like 200 origin stories and make it draw a comparison for you, right? And you won't see any one of them talking about God being light. None of them.
mm.
They all talk about God being sound or vibration. So I feel what happened was the sound sped up, the vibration sped up to become light, and it slowed down to become darkness. Because light also engages in duality, but source and God or consciousness doesn't come from a place of duality, it comes from a place of singularity.
Mm.
So duality is the I mean, light is the dualistic expression of sound. Darkness is the polar opposite expression of sound. So so as I was saying, I feel that the when it sped up to become light, now we start getting reflections, shadows, physical realities, you know, and then we also have beings manifesting from the light and beings manifesting from the darkness. And
I see.
now we start getting the stories of the gods visiting us and things like that. I feel many of the stories of the gods visiting us aren't actually God, but they're manifestations of the original source, the original sound.
Oh, I see. So then, in your opinion and research, is the darkness analogous to silence? No
Well,
sound?
yeah, so it's interesting because I would say it's multiple things here. I would say that the darkness can represent the stillness and the void, right?
Mm,
Because the
hmm.
black hole, for example, the black hole, when I'm sure if you're actually physically going around a black hole, it'll probably be quite rowdy, right? But when you get into it, you're technically in the void and that stillness and nothingness. And as they say in the spiritual community, like reaching the zero point. Well, the zero point is an analogy that comes directly from the black hole, right?
Mm,
And so when what I feel happened was sound sped up to become light, slowed down to become darkness. There was no polarity. There was only duality. Light and dark is dualistic. As light and dark started manifesting in lower dimensions, right? So we're talking about sound being the ultimate no dimension. And then as these things started manifesting in lower dimensions, they eventually got to our reality. And in our reality, we ended up imposing a polarity on top of duality.
mm,
Polarity and duality have become synonymous on Earth, but polarity doesn't exist in the higher dimensions. For example, in the higher dimensions or even in space, you have black holes and you have white holes, right? One's not good, one's not evil. They're just doing their function. Yes, the black hole is recycling everything and destroying it, and from a third dimensional perspective, you can look like at that as evil, you know? But light and dark are just polar opposites, and they both are a part of the one. So I feel, in my opinion, I feel that um, darkness in general is actually a part of God, a part of consciousness, and so as equal as light is. And if anything, God, consciousness, source, or even the frequency loves the darkness as much as it loves the light because both of them were birthed from it.
mm. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And have you done any research or heard anything about ancient civilizations being created through sound, like, for example, the pyramids or Mayan sites.
Yeah. Well, the Aborigines in Australia, they talk about being sung into creation, that they were sung into creation. So there's a lot of ancient civilizations that speak about that. And there's a Laguna Pueblo tribe in North America that they say that the what is it? It says that the word is what manifested the realm of all physical beings. So there's actual stories in ancient texts that talk about how everything is sound. There's even a quote that a flower has taken on the flower has taken on the geometry of sound manifested in physical reality, right? And I feel that's what we all are. We're all emanations of fractal geometry that is emanating from sound, but we've taken on physical manifestations from that. Now, when it comes to the use of sound in ancient civilizations, I think there's more information and research to prove that they had some advanced awareness of sound than there is to disprove it. For example, if you go into the pyramids and in the Giza Plateau and you walk into it, you're literally inside an instrument. You can see it looks like you're inside an instrument. There's a
I
pyramid in
never thought about that. I've been there.
Oh
And
yeah. Have
yeah,
you gone to the King's Chamber?
yes, the King's Chamber. And the interesting thing is, we all started oming and making a sound because someone paid off the guard. Yeah, you have to do that in
Yeah.
Egypt to make sound because it's like they're afraid of our frequency and the power
Oh
of it,
yeah.
which is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So we went into King's Chamber a few times because we took two groups of 100 back to back, right? So it was like a whole
Mhm.
month in Egypt. And in the King's Chamber, I was with JJ Desiree Hurtak. I think they might speak on Humanity's
Yes,
team.
they're part of Humanity's team. Yes, I
So
love their research.
I hosted a tour and they were our speakers for it. And we were doing some Yahweh chanting with JJ. And the whole entire room was vibrating. I felt like I was in some like Stargate, you know? And I'm not even
Yeah,
saying,
about to take
oh,
off. It
oh yeah.
does feel like that. Yeah.
I had to sit down for like an hour. I couldn't move because the vibration was so strong. And honestly, the King's Chamber was the most tangible experience of consciousness I've ever had, you know?
Wow. That's
So
incredible. Did
there's
you
another
actually go
one.
into his tomb?
Into the sarcophagus, you mean?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
whatever
I did.
it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah,
did. Okay.
yeah.
I
Did you
did.
go in?
I didn't go in. Now we're chatting like friends. I
Yeah.
didn't go in because I felt like I wanted to protect my energy a little bit. I
Uh-huh.
wasn't ready for that. It felt like
Yeah.
it would be too intense for me.
Right. And then so the people that got to go in, we laid in and we chanted while we're inside it. And
Yes.
the whole thing, like it's just like a mini King's Chamber, the vibrations bouncing off, but it's just surrounding you. And a few times when people were in there, we all chanted around the person while they're in the sarcophagus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. It's bringing back memories, connecting all of that. So, you've made a few comments about the connection between sound and frequency, but what is that connection and how do they work together to awaken higher states of consciousness? Because
Yeah.
it almost seems like when we make a sound, we're remembering our origins, which is why it feels so powerful to sing. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah. So there's a few things here. I would say that first, when we look, and this is in my course as well, when we look at the ancient history of instrumentation and instruments coming onto Earth, we originally see the first instruments coming about not for entertainment purposes. For example, the oldest instrument that been able to track is the didgeridoo. The
Oh, I
didgeridoo
love the
quite
didgeridoo.
old instrument,
Yes.
and it's we see it's used for 40,000 years in Australia, right? And then you have other instruments around the world. You have the Tibetan bowls. You have tuning forks. A lot of people don't know tuning forks were from Egypt, and from
I didn't
Egypt,
know that.
yeah. And the ankh, I feel it was a type of tuning fork.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we see is the introduction of instruments into humanity was specifically for spiritual purposes. And then as we fell from grace, so the way you look at it is we have these cycles of time. We go through evolutions of consciousness, we go through devolutions of consciousness. When we're at a higher state of consciousness, in Sanskrit text, it's called the Satya Yuga, the golden age. And then after that, you have the Dwarpa Yuga, which is the Silver Age. Then you have the Treta Yuga, the Bronze Age, and then you have the Kali Yuga that we just exited from, the Dark Ages. When you're at the highest state of consciousness, you do not need external tools in order to do things. You can levitate with your mind, you have telepathy, you have all types of
Mm.
psionic abilities. But then when you fall from grace, that's when we start seeing the introduction of instruments to help raise the consciousness. So
Oh,
you can track back. So for example, 13,000 years ago, almost exactly, we were at the pinnacle of the golden age, the top of the golden age. Then we started falling from grace. That was also the same time as the asteroids impacts on Earth, the Younger Dryas impact, and when a good percentage of the planet actually died. And so we started falling from grace, but Egypt and the Sphinx was in its heyday during that time. It was either being built at that time or it already existed for some time. And now we start seeing all of a sudden, thousands of years later after that, the introduction of language. And it looks, I mean, written words. Because it looks like before that, they maybe had some telepathic abilities.
oh, right.
And,
I mean,
and
I've
then,
heard about that in the Aborigine culture,
Mhm.
but yeah, that makes sense in Egypt that they would have that and be
Yeah.
sophisticated that way. Hmm.
Well, a good some like obviously some of this stuff is provable, some of it is in the esoteric realm, but something that is provable is the fact that all the ancient civilizations they had written language, but none of them put vowels in the ancient language. Sanskrit had no vowels in it. Ancient Egyptian, all the hieroglyphs in Egypt, there's no vowels. And but so the question is, did they use vowels or not? And so what I've discovered through my research is that vowels were only used for spiritual practices. Vowels were only used in communication, but not written down because of how sacred they were, because the vowels activate your chakra system. So
Oh,
yeah,
right. That makes
as
sense. That
as
makes
we
sense.
started falling
Okay.
from grace, as we started falling into the lower dimensions, tools started coming about, language came about, vowels were introduced into written language to keep the vibration up. Pyramids were created around the world to make sure the vibration of the planet wouldn't decrease, to create a grid work around the world.
I see.
Tools started coming about, tuning forks, ankhs, all these things. So they all started for that. But then as we continued falling from grace, we fell into a world of amnesia, a world of forgetfulness. We forgot our past lives, we forgot our divinity, we forgot all these things. And all these tools we started having, we just started using for entertainment, not realizing the effect that they had on our consciousness.
Wow. So it's so funny that you say that about the didgeridoo because I've been in the presence of someone playing didgeridoo and it's incredible. I mean, the resonance and the vibration I feel in my entire body. So it's just interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I'd like to play a clip from your course
Let's
on
do it.
Stream Plus. Yes. Can we play that clip, Jim?
All ancient religions and origin stories talk about sound. The universe is full of frequency. Well, not only the universe, everything is frequency. You and I, this table, this water bottle, my microphone, all things on the subatomic level or even below that is just made out of frequency. And we can only hear and see a limited frequency range. This is another question that is a philosophical question that would be great if we really contemplated what this means. There used to be a time for a few thousand years, right? And before that, we were probably more advanced, but for a few thousand years at least, that what we thought, smelled, hair, we could hear and we could see, we thought was the only thing that existed. Something that's really amazing now is that we now exist in a reality where we are aware that we can only hear and see a limited frequency range, meaning that we know now that there is a light spectrum and we only see a percentage of that full light spectrum. We only see a small fraction of 1% of the light spectrum. How do we know that? Well, we've been able to quantify it. We've been able to discover that. So that means all this other light exists that we're not able to perceive or even interact with. And then same thing for sound, same thing for smell, same thing for every sense. There is a frequency range for every sense that goes beyond our human perception. So the philosophical question here is,
Well, if that's the case, then what is beyond that? What can we learn from what's beyond that? And what are we really? Countless inaudible frequencies are around us always. Some of them we're utilizing. Radio frequency, that's a frequency we're using, right? Um, but we can't see it. Ultrasound is a frequency, but we can't see it. And then there's frequencies that exist that we can't see or even know that exist.
Yeah, wonderful. So Neil's course is available on Stream Plus. So that was great. I felt like it went a little bit deeper. And we do have a question from our audience. Starlight asks, I have heard the church took the 432 hertz of spirituality out of music sound and changed it to what we now to stop people from being able to access higher consciousness. Do you know if this is true?
Very good question because
Yay, I love that question.
um,
And I have a follow-up question to that one
okay,
too.
okay. Very good question because that's what I heard back in 2002, 2003. So I started doing presentations on this in 2009, 10 or something. And so I started parroting what I heard. And one day, t when was it? 2020, 2018 or something. I'm like, I've never fact checked myself before. Let me fact check myself. So I went on a deep dive and decided to do my whole sound presentation again, the one that's on Humanity's team, and fact check everything based on research and scientific papers rather than what I've heard from others, right? And so the one thing I went was the actual story that you're referring to is not the church, it was the Nazis. And so the story goes, and that's what's been spread out there, is that the scale was 432 hertz, and they moved it to 440 hertz. A equals 432 was moved to A equals 440 on the music scale, which also is a Pythagorean connection because Pythagoras is the one who created that scale. And when it was put to 440, it became disharmonic rather than harmonic, thereby calcifying our consciousness and making us more susceptible to being controlled. That is the story. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
so I went down the rabbit hole to look for this, and no, there is no research on it. There's people that have said it, and it all came from one fringe website that has nobody, it doesn't have a contact in there. You don't know who even did it. Somebody created this story, put it on the site, and there has been no other research behind it or no other evidence about that. So I'm not saying it's incorrect because maybe that person is the one person who knows. But in
Mhm.
regards to the fact that it became so widespread, um, there isn't actually any research to suggest that the Nazis did it. Yes, the Nazis did a lot of other things. And now to argue the other case of the fact that they could have is that we know for sure that they were doing seances and channeling, and Hitler thought that his people were the promised people from Atlantis. That's all documented conventional history. You know what I mean? So there was some esoterics going on there. I feel that rather than an individual doing it, I feel it might actually be combined with the fact that we became so unconscious that we weren't actually realizing how these frequencies were affecting us. Because
Mm.
if you get what's called a sound plate, right? And you put sand on the sound plate and then you play different frequencies, you can see the type of geometry that manifests from the sound. So there's a lot of these online. People put sand on a plate, they put 432 hertz, beautiful geometry manifest. They put 440 hertz, it's no longer geometric, it's in between state. It's disharmonic. So it is affecting us disharmonically. Now, in regards to was there some grand conspiracy behind it? I'm not saying there isn't, but there definitely isn't enough research to say yes for sure.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. And we have a follow-up question. So when Beethoven wrote and played music, was it in the same scale as we use today?
So from what I've heard, he did it in 432.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And that maybe that's why there's so much research on how classical music is beneficial for increasing our ability to study and focus and calmness and definitely shifts the vibration. I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
Mm. So I had a question about the bells in churches. Did
Mhm.
you hear or do you have any research to support that they took the bells out of churches because that was also a healing frequency for the people?
Well, in regards to bells in general, that specific case, not so much, but in a general case, when it comes to the the Catholic Church and the origination, is that they started around 300 to 400 AD. They started taking out elements of the church that they thought was pagan, and chanting was considered one of those. Also, also herbalism. A lot of herbalism was
Mhm.
taken out too. So what happened was for a good 1,000 years, really, I would say 800 years, from around 400 CE to around 1300 CE, the church had taken out chanting and hymns in general from most of the places. Not all of them did. And then what occurred was in around 1400s, we have the introduction of the Gregorians, and the Gregorians reintroduced Gregorian chanting, and the Gregorian chanting started bringing back in, what now has become gospel music, hymns in church, things like that, right? So there was a pushing away of sound and vibration in general. I don't think it was for a malicious controlling agenda, but I think
I see.
it was more about the fact that they thought that these rituals were pagan and they were trying to differentiate themselves from that.
Oh, wonderful. I thought it had something to do with, I don't have anything to support this, no research to support this, but that when they rang the bell, it was a healing frequency and they wouldn't have to go to the doctor as much or something like that.
That
So
could be
that,
the case too, for because there's so many different elements of that. For
yeah.
example, the churches and their pyramid-like structure right there. There's
Uh-huh.
information saying that what happens is when you create a structure in that way, it actually pulls energy from the cosmos and from the atmosphere that then energizes everybody within it, right? So there's so many layers to it. I don't think we can really know the truth. But there's one thing I'll say for sure is I was in Barcelona and there's this cathedral there, like the Cathedral of Barcelona or something like that. And inside the cathedral, there's this like area in the middle that has an entrance you go into it, and there's all these chairs around it. And it looks like you're in an occult movie. It's kind of actually scary. It actually looks more like it looks scary, okay? And then on the chairs, above the chairs, there's these Tesla coils above them that look like Tesla coils.
You're
And then they
kidding me.
no, I'm telling you, you go in there, you're like, this is the technology. And then they have these like dunce hat type of things. So here's a chair. All the popes and whatever the bishops would be around it. They would sit in the chair around, and then in the middle were all the people praying, and they have this Tesla coil with this pyramid-like thing on top of it, and it just looked like some ancient technology. So I feel a lot of these ancient civilizations, or even ancient Christianity, they didn't completely get rid of the ancient texts from Egypt, from Greece, all these things. They were a continuation of it, you know? So in many ways, they were attempting to replicate ancient technology.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what about the vibrational resonance? How does that fit in?
So the vibrational resonance, I would say that firstly, something that I don't like to say often or use in my presentations is higher and lower, because a lot of people are saying like, oh, you got to raise your frequency, you got to get a higher vibration. But then you can look at frequencies, for example, like the Schumann resonance, which is a very low frequency that actually has a really good benefit on your life. But you might look at 440, which is technically a higher frequency, and if anything, 440 isn't that a higher frequency than 432? So it's not about higher and lower frequency, because higher and lower is a construct of the Kali Yuga, of of the age that we've been in, where we look at everything as hierarchical. It's not about hierarchy, it's about harmony or disharmony. So when it comes to our frequency shifting, it's not about raising it per se, but it's about creating harmony in a disharmonic world. And everything around us is creating disharmony, from our institutions, our governments, to the way our music is played, to chemicals in our food. All these things emanate a frequency that causes disharmony. So what's happening in this shift is a collective shift towards harmony. The universe prefers to be in balance, to be neutral. So disharmony is not the regular way from the universe. The universe wants to match that vibration. So the shift going on the planet right now is us moving to that harmonic vibration.
Mm, yeah, that's beautiful. And having more awareness that that is our purpose with our evolution and ascension, right?
Exactly.
Mhm. So, what are binaural beats and how can they benefit us?
So binaural beats, I mean, there's millions, if not hundreds of thousands of songs online, and you can pretty much put in any element you have on YouTube and you find a binaural beat for it. But the way binaural beats work is that, our brains, when they're in certain frequency states, they can be put into theta, delta, gamma, different types of brainwave states. Theta wave, for example, is a really good state to be in order to usher in healing. Also, deep reflection, meditative states. Delta frequency is like the astral travel, deep dreamless sleep. So what a binaural beat is, it's two different tones, okay? And say that you have 120 hertz and then you have 30 hertz. And one tone is in one ear, the other tone is the other ear. What your brain does is it goes ahead and cancels the lower one out and it creates a middle ground between the two frequencies. So if you have 30 hertz in one ear, 120 hertz in one ear, your brain goes into 90 hertz, right? So it's a really great way to put you into a brainwave state by just doing that. Now, most of the binaural beats that people listen to, because people don't know the research behind it, the binaural beats actually don't work in the same way when you just listen to them without headphones. When you listen to them without headphones, you might be getting 4 or 5% of the benefit. It's
Oh, okay, I
just
see.
meditation. It's just meditation. So when you put them in your ears and then you have one in one ear, 120 hertz, and then the other one 30 hertz, which is how they're supposed to be created because you can create that on musical software, that's when you actually get the benefit. So most binaural beats online are not actually even really binaural beats because if you put headphones on, put it on YouTube, you put the headphones on, guess what? You're going to have the same tone in both ears, unless somebody created a song specifically to change it. So
Oh, yeah, you have to have that specific one where one goes in one ear and one goes in the other.
what they've made is so there's monaural beats. Monaural beats are the ones where you have a frequency of 90 hertz, and now you want to get 90 hertz, so they just give you the 90 hertz frequency. And that takes a little longer for your brain to actually move into that brainwave state. So if you had a monaural beat for 90 hertz, it will take longer than if you had two separate frequencies, and then your brain becomes the middle ground from those two.
Oh, I see. So what about the headphones that don't go inside the ear that you like put over your head? I
Yeah, no,
mean, is
that's
there,
fine too. Yeah, that's
that's
fine.
fine. Either way, go
Yeah.
in the ear or there. Okay.
As long as you're hearing one frequency in one ear and the other frequency in the other ear, that's all that matters.
What if you don't have as good a hearing in one ear? Will it still affect you positively?
It's vibrating you no matter what. It's
Yeah,
vibrating the eardrum, you know? So
yeah, so it's
yeah,
the bright vibration. Okay.
exactly. And there's honestly not enough scientific study out there to even see what happens in those cases. Um, I know the Monroe Institute has done a lot of research with binaural beats. So maybe they've done some studies on it, but I've never heard of a study done before of what happens if you don't have good hearing. What kind of effect does it do for you?
Yeah,
That'd be
my
a fun
curious
study.
mind.
Mhm.
So thinking about the vibration, because I mean, I have a hypothesis that it would have a similar effect
Yeah.
because of what you're saying. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's the vibration.
A good example is the fact that there's frequencies around us all the time that we can't hear affecting us,
Hmm.
right?
You mean because we can't hear them? Are they at another frequency that the human ear can't detect?
Yeah, I mean, there's infinite, like, for example, um, there was a satellite that we put out into space, and the satellite started picking up all these messages. And the messages, it was like past Jupiter. And what were the messages? There were Earth's radio signals from like 50 years ago. Okay. And it's still out there in space. So if all those signals are out there in space, do you think that there isn't 100 like million types of sounds that are not audible to you moving around you right now? Right?
Mm.
The whole planet is covered with it. Sometimes I accidentally forget to put airplane mode on my phone when I go on the plane, and I still got signal up there, you know? And And like when I'm on my way up there, but what I'm getting at is that signal is everywhere.
Yeah.
The frequency is everywhere, right? Right now, and we're not just talking about sound, but we're just talking about frequency in general, is all over the place. There is I had an EMF frequency reader, right, to read the EMFs of my computer and different things because I wanted to prove to myself scientifically that all these people that say EMFs are bad for you are right. And I also wanted to prove to myself that orgonite can actually neutralize EMFs. So what I did
Okay.
was I got an EMF frequency reader and I got my like five organite pieces,
Okay.
and I went to my Wi-Fi router. I checked the EMF frequency off the chart because it tells you what the danger level is, and they're all on
Uh-huh.
danger level, red zones, right? And then
Okay.
I put on the organite, zero.
But does
It,
it
it
still work then? The Wi-Fi
still
still
works.
works?
It still works.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's
So
amazing.
when I was living back in California, I had my shrine was around my Wi-Fi router. I had like five pieces of organite, and then I
Oh
had one.
my gosh, that's a
I
great
had,
tip.
yeah, I had
Thank
one
you
on my
for that.
computer. And then there's also those little patch organites that you can put on your phone. And then I had like five on my computer, and then I would just test the EMF afterwards, and yeah, they were neutralizing the
Oh
frequencies.
my gosh, that's amazing. I use those too. I use those things on my phone and my computer, but I haven't tried what you did on the Wi-Fi router. That sounds even better to go to the source. So we do have a question. Do you have a suggestion for specific binaural beats that are helpful?
I would say that one that matches the 40 hertz. So a lot of times when you look up a binaural beat online, it'll say like 40 hertz frequency, but actually, it's actually two other frequencies because what happens is those two frequencies creates 40 hertz within you. Okay, so it's actually not 40 hertz. It might be 110 hertz and what is it? 70 hertz, but that creates 40 hertz. So it's called 40 hertz. 40 hertz is really good because it's helped with organ repair. My friend here that I'm living with, he actually is a full-time composer musician. He has a whole library of 432 hertz music he licenses out, and he created a 40 hertz song for his grandfather that had Parkinson's that helped with his brain. So it's really good for brain and cognitive abilities. That's a great one. I would say a binaural beat that gives you the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is one of the best frequencies. I say this in my presentation as well. You know, illness and sickness went exponential as we industrialized Earth. The more we got disconnected from the Earth, the more sicknesses became exponential because the Earth has a natural Schumann resonance that creates alkalinity in your body, creates health, oxygenates your cells. And there's a great documentary out there called Earthing, and that
Hmm.
documentary is about, you might have heard of it, it's a really famous documentary, but it all talks about how when you connect to the earth, all types of miracles happen. So they created earthing mats, right? But the earthing mats, what are they doing? It's all Schumann resonance. Even the original, so the Schumann resonance, the original frequency of the Schumann resonance is C sharp, okay? All the didgeridoos before the modern day, all the didgeridoos in antiquity, all were tuned to C sharp. And,
Mm.
but the crazy thing is that they were playing C sharp, and so they were basically emanating the Schumann resonance all over each other. But no person in antiquity ever made a didgeridoo. All the didgeridoos were naturally carved out by termites. Yeah. So no one
Wow.
actually went like the didgeridoo creation is only like 200 years old, but it's 40,000-year-old instrument. Because what would happen is the when the boy, because men were only supposed to use it back in the day, not women, because it's a phallic tool, it's a symbolic phallic tool.
Okay.
And so they would give the kid a psychedelic when he was about to turn of age, and they would send him into the wilderness in the outback, and he could not come back until he found his didgeridoo, found his phallus. That's the symbolism of it. And but lucky for him, it wasn't hard because there was naturally carved out, hollowed out trunks all over the outback by termites. Okay. But the most craziest component of this is every single didgeridoo that was carved out all had the same frequency when you blew out of it. So all the termites from for tens of thousands of years had the same code in their DNA that whenever they carved out a trunk for a tree that will become a didgeridoo, the way they carved it and the way they went around it always made it that the frequency was C sharp. Isn't that
Isn't that
insane?
incredible? It's
Yeah,
like life is such a miracle.
right.
Wow. I love that story. That's amazing. Well, I'd like to play another clip from your course on Stream Plus, Ultimate Sound Frequency. Can we play that module 4? Mhm.
That's the sound frequency. So the frequency comes out in geometrical form. The sound is literally making a geometrical shape. And we cannot see it. We cannot see it until we do something like this, and then we can perceive it.
Oh, yeah, interesting. So, how did you come up with the idea to use salt as sound frequency in the experiment? You're muted right now.
Said I didn't do that experiment. That experiment is a little older, right?
Okay.
And so when I first started looking into this in 2001, I came across this video. Now, thousands of people have done it. And they just basically, I don't know who was the first person that did the sound plate and geometry came out of it. Actually, I take that back. I do know who the first person was. And but it could be even older than this because there's documentation that Pythagoras did this. And so, Pythagoras is the discoverer of geometry. He didn't he didn't find geometry. He discovered it so that it can be used practically, right? And he also went to different civilizations around the world and borrowed information from India, from the Babylonians, from the Egyptians, creating this. And if you look at what Pythagoras was all about, his one of his quotes that is probably paraphrased was that his whole reason and mission was to find the frequency of God. That's what he wanted to do. He was looking, so he created a school on the island of Crotona and he created a university where he was initiating people into exploring what frequency is. And as they were doing that, they started creating the first instrument in Greece, which was the lyra. They played the lyra and they would do sand plate demonstrations where they would play different frequencies coming from it and they would see what geometries were coming out of it. And then he started realizing, wow, frequencies and sound have a geometrical component. And then the other thing was, wow, if frequency is God, is geometry a mathematical representation of God, right? So that's where it really all stemmed from. But what I would like people to get out of that video is that frequency, definitely comes into one of our senses, which is the audible senses, being able to hear. But every single sense has a representation of a frequency. For example, if you have an essential oil, it smells a certain way, but you can actually gauge what hertz frequency that is vibrating at. If you have anything that's physical, the geometry is the physical representation of the sound. You and I, we are geometry manifested in human form. If we get down to the microscopic level of us, we will see the beautiful geometry in our body. So we are, in essence, geometry that has taken on physical form. Another great example are snowflakes. The snowflakes all are individual, unique snowflakes, right? Why are they unique and individual? Well, they're different forms of sound frequency emanating around it that has taken on that physical representation through water. Understand what I'm saying there?
Yes, yes, I followed those experiments as well. Masaru Emoto and
Exactly.
yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's so amazing how instant the water responds. And I even heard a spiritual teacher say that if 70% of the people on the planet bless their water, we would have higher states of consciousness even faster.
100%. Like to piggyback of that, in the law of attraction pretty much has this equation. Thought equals action, action equals manifestation, right? And so what that represents is the we basically imagine this world into reality. There's enough evidence to suggest that this is more of a simulation, an organic, conscious, holographic simulation than it is physical, right? The science keeps backing up that everything is made out of the same energy, but things look so different, right? So, but what's happening now is we're moving from thought equals action, action equals manifestation, and we're taking out the action part, and thought is almost immediately equaling manifestation, right?
That's been
So,
happening to me.
exactly. And so if we get to a point where, as you said, 70% or 50% plus of the people on Earth all emanated the same thought frequency from their head or a similar one, imagine 52% of the planet right now just sat down for 5 minutes in stillness and did the same meditation for peace on earth, end of all wars, clean water. The simulation would have no choice but to reflect back the code that we're putting within it. Because
Oh, I
what
see.
we have forgot, like, I love the computer analogies. I feel it really breaks this down, is that we are actors on the stage that we forgot we're acting. But we also forgot that we're the coders, we're the script writers, we're the architects. We forgot that we created it. So what's happening, the awakening to me, is from us going from unconsciously creating to becoming the conscious creators. And when we become the conscious creators, then we know, oh, we can instantly manifest things. And pretty soon, I think we're going to be able to do magical things that right now we consider like, whoa, that's like not even humanly possible, breaking the laws of physics, levitating, those kind of things.
Yeah, because even maybe in some of the ancient texts that you've read, they
Mhm.
talk about that, that certain people levitating and having those abilities
Yes,
by
exactly.
location. Hmm.
Yeah. Only Pythagoras and Yeshua both have many stories of bilocating as well, being in two places at once.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we're getting to that now. Like, I'll just say this as well, that the, like the whole thing is that we can't teleport. Nothing can be teleported, right? Like, for
Hmm.
example, Star Trek, you're over there right now, and then you can teleport here. So that's all been a theory. But on the subatomic level, which is everything below an atom, we're seeing things teleporting all the time. Things are acting in double slit experiment is acting in two distinct different ways simultaneously. But here's the crazy thing. We're made out of subatomic particles. The subatomic world isn't separate from us. That is what we're made out of. So how come on the atomic level, we're not able to duplicate what's happening on the subatomic level, right? And to me, it's like the subatomic world is the code, and it's almost like, for example, a video game. The guy that you're playing the video games made up all these code and all these numbers of ones and zeros. But when you're in the video game, those ones and zeros have created a distinct parameter for it to follow, and it cannot break free from that parameter because it's been coded in a certain way, right? But since we're the coders, I feel what's happening now is we're slowly but surely going to be able to shift that, and then yes, start regaining those abilities that we had in the ancient times as well.
Wow. That's exciting.
Mhm.
We could all be like the superheroes that we see in the movies because we probably have that in our encoded in our DNA as a potential, but that our belief system overrides it because we
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Half of it is the frequency of the Earth and the Kali Yuga and our position of our solar
Mhm.
system and our galaxy, because the position of our solar system and our galaxy directly follows the evolutions of consciousness where we're at. And then the other part is our belief systems. Is 50% belief, 50% locality and where we've been, But
Oh,
now we've just gone through the photon belt of the Milky Way galaxy and we're emerging out onto the other side. We've already emerged out. And now the solar system and our position in our galaxy is supporting our ascension. So the only last thing left is for us to shift our belief systems. If we were told that we were infinite beings since like since we were babies, and we're told that our ancients could levitate and we could talk telepathically, and those muscles were worked out at an early age, it would just become something that's a norm.
yeah. I mean, I notice we probably already as humans do communicate telepathically. I'll
Yeah.
just say that. And we're just like you were saying before, maybe not consciously aware of it. It's like when you get a phone call from your mom and you were just thinking about her, or if you're thinking the same thing. And my daughter, when she was a child, she's 10 now, she did not want to speak. She was trying to communicate telepathically, but I think I was not ready for it or getting all the messages completely, just getting like partial messages. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in our physiology when it comes to our DNA, right? You probably heard of 12-strand DNA, but today I'm gonna just stick to what's conventionally accepted. Yes, they could be esoteric 12 strands, but we definitely know that there's parts of our actual physical DNA that are dormant. And there's been a lot of mainstream scientists that say that it looks like some of this DNA was probably used at an ancient time of human history, and they're not sure why it went dormant. And then we also know that we use a small percentage of our brain. It's not like we use only 5%, like they say, we use more than that. But there are parts of our brain that also stays dormant. And there's parts of our brain that only are activated during the first 3 years of our life. And then when we die and sleep, right? For example, the pineal gland, even though we're utilizing it quite often, and the pituitary gland also dictates our hormonal levels and everything like that. But the pineal gland is really completely fully active and in control for the first 3 years of your life. It's completely lit up. DMT in your brain is immense. And then when you die, the pineal gland is the first part of your brain that just goes pew. And what it does is there's a gland inside your pineal gland that excretes DMT the moment you die. What is that technically doing? It's like giving you an ayahuasca journey in those last minutes. You know what I mean? So we and what happens in those moments is you have all knowingness. So there's parts of our brain that are really dormant, and as we evolve, more and more of this stuff is going to come alive. So it's going to be a very interesting future.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm wondering if we have time for another clip. Jim, can we play module 3? See if he has that.
Now, at the
Oh,
deepest
humming
level,
effect.
the most subtlest level is the humming effect, going even further down, the most basic version. This is how we can break down our own body's ability to do some miraculous healing in ourselves. So there's a book called The Humming Effect, and I'll show it on the next slide. The understanding is that we are our own biggest sound healing instrument. We're our own biggest tool, guys. We're our own biggest sound healing instrument. Sound instruments, a lot of them that I've researched, were designed to mimic the human voice. We all have a power, we all have the power we need to harmonize ourselves and tap into our innate gifts and abilities. We have three brains, our mind, heart, and our gut. Each one can be activated, and through sound, we can move the energy wherever we want. So we're gonna hum together in a second and try this. Let me see if I have the book. I don't have the book here. So the humming effect, get the book by Jonathan Goldman if you really want to go deep into this. It breaks down the science. But when you hum, you actually release a gas, a hormone called NO2, nitric oxide, I believe it's called. And this nitric oxide depletes as we grow older. And also, when you have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, you have very low nitric oxide, and it has so many benefits for our body and well-being. By the simple act of humming, the simple act of humming, when you vibrate your nasal area above your lips and the bottom of your nose, the vibration from that area creates an influx and a creation of NO2 within your body. Like this is, you can read the book if you want to get into the science, but this has all been clinically proven to be true. So the humming effect not only is a way that we can move the sound throughout our body and tap into the tone and vibration within ourselves, but it's also actually doing things scientifically that helps with our brain chemistry, our neuroplasticity in our brain. That means the flexibility of your brain to create new synaptic connectors and new neural pathways all occurs from being able to hum. So we've done the seed sounds, we've done the vowel sounds. Now we're going to hum.
So to get that experiment, the humming, you can go to Humanities Stream Plus and join. Well, thank you for joining us for Ancient
Pleasure.
Wisdom.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
And the future science of sound with Neil Gaur. His course, Ultimate Sound Frequency, is available now on the Stream Plus platform. So join now and gain immediate access to hundreds of incredible spiritual teachers and programs. We are proud to say that Humanity Stream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising masterclasses and transformational education. And we are a nonprofit and also give back with our 1-for-1 program. I wanted to thank Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, and the production team, Jim Gray, Garth Catterall, Eva Lee, Karen Weissert, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanity's team. And thank you, Neil, for this insightful conversation today.
Chris, I appreciate it. Take care, everybody.